Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, and welcome to the 2025 Straime Awards, where it's like the Game Awards, only with my name in them. 2025 ended up being an absolutely phenomenal year for gaming, like one of the best in a long time for me. And as always, I'm eager to highlight my top 10 favorites with a nice little one-of-a-kind award for the devs to take a screenshot of, print it out, and hang it up on their fridges. I've also got a few side awards for things that I felt left a positive impact on gaming as a whole this year. As always, let's go over the rules real quick so you know what to expect. First, only games that released physically or digitally in 2025, so long as that version was my first time playing the game. This also means no demos or early access titles, regardless of how much I may have enjoyed them. Also this year, I'm excluding all remakes, remasters, whatever titles. I don't normally have this rule, and some games I absolutely love did get this treatment this year, but I don't know, I just think it's more fair and fun to focus on new stuff this year, of which there was a lot to enjoy. As always, please remember that if one of your favorite games isn't on this list, it just means that I didn't like it as much as you did, or the much more likely outcome, I simply didn't play it. And I think that's everything, so let's not wait any longer and get these awards going. Starting off our list, we have the Nelly Furtado Award for Best Game Where I'm Like a Bird with Toroa Skycall. There's just something very relaxing about flight simulators, and this one is a gorgeous, atmospheric experience where I get to be a bird and soar around and chat with animal friends, and there's something so comforting and serene about the whole experience. It delivers exactly what it promises in an easy-to-learn flight experience that has just enough world-building and story with the beautiful Maori sky and sea to be fulfilling, engaging, and perfectly tailored to my tastes. I have it toward the end here because it was admittedly one of the last games I played in 2025, but one that I certainly enjoyed my time with, and will probably keep playing for a while even after this video comes out. I'm not sure why my number 10 games are usually centered around the ocean in some way, but you won't hear me complaining, when instead you can just listen to the calming ocean waves. Okay, let's move on. For nearly 10 years now, there's a game that I've mentioned in almost every single one of these yearly wrap-up videos. A game that took over 13 years to develop from its original Kickstarter back in 2012. In the time it took this game to come out, I've graduated, started jobs, I've loved and lost, and gotten to that age where I throw out my back by sneezing too hard. But today, I can proudly say I'm giving the Appreciating the Journey and the Destination Award for Best Long-Awaited Game to none other than SpaceVenture, which left early access on December 23rd, 2025, pretty darn close to the end of the year, which I will admit shook up these awards a little bit. Sorry, Once Upon a Katamari. Now, I actually did do a full video on this game when it entered early access in April 2025, and I talked about most of the stuff I loved there, but to recap, this is a comedy sci-fi point-and-click adventure game from the guys from Andromeda, makers of Sierra's classic Space Quest series. The title is funny, clever, has some decent puzzles, solid writing, and it's just been a blast on every playthrough I've done for it, where I'm still finding new jokes and bits. It has a lot to offer point-and-click fans in a nicely condensed package, and I recommend it. The devs made something that they wanted to play, and I appreciate it as a labor of love. Back in my video, I said I didn't think the 13-year wait was necessarily worth it, and while I do stand by that, I want to clarify how insanely proud I am of everyone who worked on this game, and how amazing and wonderful I think it is that they stuck by the project after all these years. In a world full of cancelled games and abandoned Kickstarter projects, seeing this game fully released, available for everyone, is really cool and immensely satisfying, and absolutely it's one of my favorite gaming experiences of the year. How nuts would it be if I'd banged on about this game for so long and then just not had it be in my top 10? One of the things that separate video games from movies or music is that it's an interactive medium rather than a passive one, and I've always felt that reading falls closer to the interactive side. You can fall asleep during a movie or even an audiobook and it'll keep going with or without you. But the game doesn't get played and the book doesn't get read if you doze off. And that's why I'm proudly giving this year's I Have Many Leather-Bound Books Award for Best Visual Novel to Siren's Call: Escape Velocity. For those of you that haven't already heard me gush about how much I love this game in one of my indie games inspired by Megami Tensei videos, this is a visual novel that basically takes place after the party had their giant Persona-esque RPG adventure, and how such an event may have actually impacted the world that they worked so hard to save, how it affects their own relationships with each other as a party, and what it really means to move on from life-changing events like these, and the anxieties that stem from always trying to do or say the right thing. There's a nice subtle horror to the game, and it's a story I highly recommend checking out for yourself. In my aforementioned video, I said that this was one of the most incredible, engaging, and immersive VNs I've ever played, and I absolutely loved it, and I stand by that, and that's why it's on this list. We've already gotten a few snippets here and there for the upcoming sequel, Siren's Call: Second Wind, and ah man, I can't wait to play that for myself. And now it's time for the always popular side award, the Top 10 Video Game Waifus of 2025. And our winners are Miss Lawrence from Siren's Call: Escape Velocity, Poppy Kong from Donkey Kong Bonanza, Dasha from Date Everything, Daciana from Battlesuit Aces, Breddy from Goddess of Victory Nikkei, Kaio from Persona 5 The Phantom X, Professor Hakase from Full Metal Schoolgirl, The Sultana from Shantae Advance Risky Revolution, Invisigal from Dispatch, and April 1st from Monster Prom 4 MonsterCon. Congrats to all the— Our sister Amin. Oh, I'm terribly sorry everyone. It appears that there has been an updated list for our winners this year. Let me start again. It's now Minami from Sushi Ben, Minami from Sushi Ben, Minami from Sushi Ben, and it just keeps going like this. It's Minami from Sushi Ben. She just wins, okay? She wins the Waifu Award. Deal with it. Hear those bells? That's a tune most of us are familiar with, right? My grandma had a clock that would play this tune on the hour, but for many of us, it's simply the Japanese high school bell. And that means if you're hearing this, some of you are late. But not too late, because the Westminster Chime Award for Best School Time Game goes to the 100-line Last Defense Academy. I freaking loved this game. At first it feels like the Danganronpa formula with a bunch of wacky, weird, borderline psychotic high schoolers trapped in a building together, but instead of trying to take each other out, they're tasked with surviving for 100 days while their school is attacked by cosmic invaders in the form of SRPG-style combat. Obviously, I still wish Atlus would just make a Devil Survivor 3, but this kinda helped scratch that itch for me, as the focus on strategy combat and social elements with your fellow survivors felt really organic and fun. After beating the main plot of 100 Days, you can jump back into the title and get one of 100, yes, 100 endings based on a myriad of choices. And while these endings can range from romantic endings to more Danganronpa-esque killing game endings to one many of us would agree is the true ending, none of them really felt like bad or joke endings, at least from what I've seen so far. I obviously haven't gotten all of them, but this is an absolutely fantastic game, and I've really liked seeing more and more people acknowledge it. And if you haven't tried it for yourself, well, ding dong bing bong folks, that bell is still tolling, so it's not too late to pick it up and give it a try for yourself. Our next entry feels like a very unique way for me to showcase how incredible 2025 has been for me gaming-wise. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you know that I adore the Monster Prom games. Every game in this series has made my top 10, and they're generally in my top 3. So the fact that I'm giving the Key & Peele's Nonstop Party Award for Best Multiplayer Game to Monster Prom 4 MonsterCon at the number 6 spot is truly extraordinary. Especially with the added cherry being that Monster Prom 4 might actually be my favorite in the series thus far. All of the 6 love interests are great, I especially love April, but they've also got so many unlockable side characters with their own secret romance paths. The convention setting is great and feels like a fun time between friends. The events are as hilarious as ever. The comic book mechanic was a blast, and I just absolutely adored this game. The Monster Prom series is still going strong, and it's no surprise to me at all that they're still making my lists even after all these years. This is a fantastic title, it's a great time with friends, and I recommend it to anybody out there. Games have the power to make us laugh, and they have the power to make us feel other emotions. And true to their name, Onion Games is usually good for getting the waterworks going, but always in a way that feels organic, earned, and often from a world that had me laughing and smiling along the way. And that's why I'm proud to announce the Toy Story 3 Ending Award for Best Game That Made Me Cry to Stray Children. This game is such a surreal and bizarre take on RPGs, and tells the story of a small dog child, whom the game calls Anonimo if you just have no idea what to call them, and explores different regions with monsters known as elders. You can choose to fight them, or you can try your best to communicate with them, which often feels troublesome in a good way, and there's a unique puzzle mechanic to the system that tests your abilities. The music and sound effects, the verbal tics of the characters, this game just looks and sounds amazing, and I really wish I heard more people talking about this game. The same devs behind Stray Children also made Moon, which Toby Fox said was a huge inspiration for Undertale, while Stray Children feels like it actually takes a lot from Undertale. So the games have this unique behind-the-scenes bond that I really appreciated and enjoyed seeing. This was one of the best and most memorable endings I've ever seen in a game, and it's worth experiencing from start to finish. I absolutely loved this game. Also, I want to mention there's a Persona 5 vending machine in it. Our next side award for the evening is the Best YouTube Gaming Video. As a YouTuber who talks about video games, I watch a lot of other YouTubers talking about video games. And my absolute favorite this year was One Short Eye's nearly 4-hour masterpiece on the Dagger of Amon-Ra. It's funny, educational, well-structured, and an absolute joy to watch. Without a doubt, this was my favorite YouTube video this year, and I've watched it multiple times. I'd like to say more about it, but my parents told me not to talk about YouTube videos that I wasn't in. The right snack can elevate any situation. Jerky is a classic for road trips. Peanuts amp up a baseball game. And for our next award, we have the Whoppers in Popcorn Award for Best Schlocky Horror Snack, going to none other than Demonschool. This puzzle-based RPG, inspired by classic SMT and Italian horror flicks, hits all the right notes. It strikes a nice balance between classic cinematic horror and social elements that feels really good together. The combat is tricky, but incredibly satisfying when you pull off that perfect string of moves to get full marks by the end of it. I absolutely adored the art style and music. The unique setting and tone may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's a fantastic RPG horror adventure, full of stories that feel like loving homages to the genre of cinema while keeping it engaging as a game. Within the first week, you'll be hunting down a cursed VHS tape while fighting off demons and gangsters, so if that sounds like a good time to you, don't sleep on this one. Just remember to have gloves or napkins ready, because melted butter and chocolate from that Whopcorn is going to be a huge pain to clean off your controller. A well-constructed mystery is perfect for video games. Using logic, clues, and conversation to get information and put all the pieces together is such a good and satisfying feeling. It's why Ace Attorney is still my favorite game franchise. Well, this year it's impossible to overlook the contributions of one title in particular, and so the John Dixon Carr's Locked Room Lecture Award for Best Mystery Game goes to Detective Instinct: Farewell My Beloved. Join Nick and Emma as they explore a train to learn about a mysterious disappearance, solve seemingly connected murders, and discover the truth behind all the events that led up to this moment. The game is inspired by classic PC adventure games, and many may compare it to Ace Attorney or Hotel Dusk, but the verb system and puzzle-solving mechanics feel heavily aligned with the Famicom Detective Club series. I loved exploring the scenes and chatting with witnesses and potential suspects to guide us toward an absolutely amazing conclusion. This is a fantastic mystery game that not only delivers a great narrative and puzzle experience, but honors and respects the games that inspired it in such a big way. Don't let yourself miss out on this experience, and I'm already hoping for future installments in the Detective Instinct series. One of my biggest problems with episodic games is they're usually so spread out that I'm stuck either waiting between releases, which can take months, sometimes even years, or I just have to dodge spoilers and play through the completed package. At my number 2 spot, we have the binge-watching the good seasons of Futurama award for Best Episodic Game going to Dispatch. Ad Hoc, a studio made up of many former Telltale developers, decided to release all the episodes in the first season over just a few weeks, so binging it didn't leave me waiting and miserable. You play as Robert, a dispatcher for a superhero office building, and the game mostly bounces between actual hero dispatch work, where you consider your available hero stats and send them off on jobs, and the personal life of the characters, where you make dialogue choices and form a rapport with the absolutely fantastic cast. Dispatch is actually something I've wanted for a really long time. It follows the Telltale formula, but Ad Hoc created this fantastic, unique world, so I'm not saddled to a pre-existing IP. The funny thing about binging my way through Dispatch is that as I played, I could mentally process it climbing higher and higher on this list, and I was really blown away by how quickly it went from, yeah, this'll probably make my list, to my number 8, my number 6, my top 5, and now here we are at number 2. By the time I got to the end of the first season, I just want Ad Hoc to know that John will remember that. There was only one other game from this year that I found myself liking a little bit more. But before we get to that, it's time for our very last side award, and that's the Strain42 Patreon Picks Game of the Year award. Every year, my super awesome patrons get the chance to share their favorite titles, and we see which ones came out on top. If you want to be a part of this tradition and get other behind-the-scenes goodies, you can pledge $1 a month and help the channel out. So, what game won it all for my patrons this year? None other than Pokémon Legends ZA. I definitely played a lot of this title myself and considered having it on the list. The character customization was a blast, the story and characters were all pretty solid, and the city was well constructed and fun to explore. However, for me, the lack of new Pokemon held it back a bit, and I still don't love the new combat system. But that's why we have the fan vote, because I'm still happy to highlight this title and give it some love from the people who are kind enough to support what I do. You know, it's really weird to me that 2025 had a new Pokemon game, Like a Dragon game, and Megaten games, 3 of my all-time favorite franchises, and none of them made my list this year. But for Megaten, this is the year where we got both Carsen and Metafrost, which I'm only bringing up because I wanted an excuse to say Carsen and Metafrost. Alright, with that out of the way, on to our Game of the Year. Some games may seem simple at first, but the more you play them, the more you experience, the more complex they seem, and the more you find yourself absolutely engrossed in it. My number 1 game should not come as a surprise to anyone who follows me on social media, because I just kept talking about this game. I did a video talking about one of my favorite elements of this game, and so, yes, my 2025 Game of the Year is the Street Vendor Takoyaki Award for Best Game that I just kept wanting more of. And it's none other than Promise Mascot Agency. You know, if you told me at the start of 2025 that my top 2 games this year would both be wacky management simulator set in a grounded but fantastical world, I'd have probably believed you, because that very much sounds like something I'd do. You play as a disgraced Yakuza exiled to run a mascot agency in a small town in a world inhabited by living Japanese mascots. The game bounces back and forth between different playstyles, from the open sandbox where you can recruit mascots and get hero cards, the agency itself where you send mascots on jobs and grow closer to them through social link-esque mechanics, and the card battles where your recruited and strengthened heroes help the mascots get through troubles on the job you sent them on to get back on track and be successful. Everything plays into one another, and it creates a satisfying, engaging loop that I never got sick of, because I always felt like I was doing better, getting better, accomplishing more, and improving upon where I started from. I'll actually have more to say about this game in an upcoming video, but for now, I can't stress enough how much I adored this title, and why Promise Mascot Agency is my number 1 game of 2025. And that's my top 10 games for the year and the awards I wanted to give them. There was some amazing stuff this year, and I've already got a few games on my radar for the upcoming year. I've included links to all of these games in the video description if you want to check them out for yourself, but please let me know what some of your favorite games of 2025 were. I love sharing these games with all of you, and I love having the chance for you all to share stuff with me too. Thank you so much for watching. Here's wishing for good things in the new year, and until next time, take care.